My name's Michael Murray, and I'm producer on Tekken.
Tekken 7, been out for a while now. Been getting a lot of love from the fan scene, from the fighting scene, and now we're getting ready for Season 3 of these new characters. I just got some hands-on time with Safinaz, and initially she strikes me as kind of a cross between Lei and Lin Xiaoyu. A little bit of harangues thrown in there for good measure.
Well, Safinaz is a quite unique character. She's one that's actually returning. She's a fan favorite from Tekken Tag Tournament 2 in an earlier 6 that a lot of people have been asking for. But she has unique styles. She has 2 different stances, the tarantula and kind of her one-legged stance. So the idea is to transition between those and use the most effective moves. Her low stance is quite effective as it's quite hard to attack a lot of times. But one thing we're always struggling with is we have these really cool guest characters that people love. Also the new character like Leroy that we just announced. So to bring a returning character to try to create that same hype is quite difficult for us. So we did add a new twist. This time she has a special move, as you can see in Rage Arts and some other animations, where she has the Azazel hand. You know, the kind of end boss that you fight in, I believe it was Tekken 6. And so that was kind of she was in charge of containing that monster, and the only way that she could do it at the time was to kind of contain it in her hand. So that's kind of the new twist on the character as she returns in Tekken 7.
That's awesome. And then, like, how much balancing do you guys have to do to bring in a character like this? As, you know, because obviously, as the roster grows, like, it gets more and more difficult to balance.
We actually made a shift to the Unreal Engine 4 for Tekken 7, so it's not just taking her data and porting it over. We had to actually recreate the character again, making sure the animations and the level of detail and everything is as expected as the other characters in Tekken 7, just from visual look and the way she fits in the game. But as you say, the gameplay as well, we have to make sure that she has the right balance when compared to other characters that weren't in previous installments. Geese, you know, whether that's Akuma or these many other characters introduced since then. But I think the more attention has actually been played to how does she play that's different than Tekken Tag Tournament 2. Otherwise, there's no real reason to include her in the new installment, right?
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, Tag's a much different beast. You know, you've got the 2 characters, so that's like a total different balance.
So yes, as you said, we made the return to the one-on-one formula. So it isn't a more complex combo with, you know, starting off with one character and then calling in Safinaz from partway through. She had to be kind of relooked to make sure that her fighting kind of stood on its own, and the combos were over the top and something that's more unique that people hadn't seen. I think her Rage Arts is quite spectacular, so a lot of people will be surprised when they check her out.
That's awesome. Now let's talk about Leroy. I'm really excited about Leroy. I grew up taking Wing Chun Kung Fu, and like the minute I saw him, I'm like, wait a second, I recognize those moves. And this character is just bleeding style.
I actually did Wing Chun when I was in high school as well, so I know what you mean. Yeah, Leroy. So the start for that was, you know, I've been on the Tekken series for quite a long time. And I noticed a lot of longtime fans mentioning how they miss real martial arts or, you know, something based on it being implemented in Tekken. At least some of these other characters are cool, but they're not like real martial arts in that per se, as seen by some people. So myself and Harada told the team, hey, let's look at what we could bring into the game. Wing Chun was one that often came up, but we didn't really have a clear vision on how to implement that properly in the game. Until more recently, where the game designers sat down, they said, okay, I think we have a few ideas on how to make this cool and make him work in Tekken. And it just kind of went from there.
That's awesome. Now, I just saw recently T-Pain cosplay as Leroy. Was that like a big surprise for you guys?
Yes, I knew nothing about it. When the first picture I saw didn't even mention T-Pain. It was just like some cosplayer at Dragon Con or something. I'm like, oh man, that's like looking at the game. That's pretty high level of, you know, authenticity there. And then another Twitter account mentioned, hey, it's T-Pain. I'm like, wow, T-Pain? Or we didn't even ask him to do it or anything. It's just I heard he's a gamer, and he seemed to really love the character design. So I'm glad. Thanks, man.
That's Awesome. Can we talk a little bit about his moves and like what kind of play style we should expect for people that are going to want to main Leroy?
He's coming this winter. We haven't mentioned an exact date. We'll have more details later on in the year. I can say that we've tried to include some of the major things you might think from Wing Chun. Like you saw the 1-inch punch in the trailer already. He has a chain punch, I believe, if you're familiar with the Wing Chun. Some of the things that Wing Chun practitioners will expect, or if you've seen some of the movies that made it popular, like I think the Donnie Yen series, Man was one of the more popular ones as well. So something that people expect will be represented. I think there's a good chance we'll have them covered.
That's awesome. So is it gonna, like, I know Wing Chun's more of a counter attack based kung fu. So is there gonna be like a lot of like counters and parries and things like that?
There could be. I can't really go out and tell a whole lot of detail, but I know what you're talking about. A lot of it is parrying and attacking at the same time. So we are aware of that concept, and how we implement it is something I hope you look forward to.
That's awesome. Now, Leroy himself, like Bruce Lee, actually started with Wing Chun as well. And then there's a famous sort of B movie, The Last Dragon, that featured Bruce Leroy. So is this kind of like a nod and a wink to both Bruce Lee and The Last Dragon?
Not at all. I mean, Harada and I are very open to the community. We have a lot of interactions. So many people were asking for Wing Chun. The character design was more of another Asian guy doing kung fu is not something very original. At the same time, we wanted to make a character that our core audience that play Tekken would really love. And we wanted to go with a design that looked unique, something you didn't expect. So a kung fu master from New York, that's kind of the original setting. I had totally forgotten about that movie, The Last Dragon, until Leroy was announced. Some people were like, hey, this is a nod to that movie, right? And I'm like, I totally forgot about that. That was like in the 80s, right? I think I was maybe in junior high or elementary. But yeah, so it wasn't an influence. But I see what they're talking about.
Awesome. Now let's talk a little about esports. You guys have been doing your own Iron Fist tournaments now for a while, and then you had a big showing at EVO. There was a lot of love for Tekken 7 at EVO this year. Like, how's that been for you guys, and like just sort of the warm reception you've been getting from the fighting scene?
Right. So I think we originally started the prior tournaments when we were still doing the Tekken 7 in the arcades. We had limited tournaments in Japan where we call some players from the North American rounds, etc. We kicked off an actual world tour. I think this is the third year, so roughly 3 years ago when the game launched. And that's been really great to see the numbers increase every year. I've been told it's one of the only fighting games where we've seen an increase year over year, when it usually drops off after the first year. We're on a third, and it's still increasing numbers, whether that's watching on Twitch or whether that's the actual entrance in EVO. So seeing that is just amazing. I'm glad that the community is still supporting the game, and it allows Harada and I to do some of the more cool things with the game because of that. And EVO was really great. I mean, it just feels so natural being on stage because, I actually get more worked up and intense presenting to people in the company. When I'm on stage at EVO, it's like, it's the guys that hang out, we play Tekken, and I'm a producer, but, we're still cool. We talk so much that I'm just talking to my friends on stage. So it feels like I'm at home there, and I really love to see them react to us. And I think they can tell because our presentations are always a lot cooler than the other ones, I think.
Totally. No, you guys definitely hit it out of the park this year, I feel. Another thing I'm kind of curious about, this is like our third round of characters here that we're getting. Do you guys have more planned, or are you going to be moving on to maybe like the next iteration after this? Like what's the future of Tekken?
Honestly, we only had one season of DLC planned when we launched the game. It was the thing of the time to make a deluxe version, so we did that. Esports wasn't the trend it is now. Internally, Japanese people really didn't. It wasn't a keyword like it is now. It was something Harada and I wanted to do because we've been a part of the community for so long. It did well, and then people are expecting a season 2 to support it. So then we're in a rush and get all the paperwork in the company and get everyone on board with it. And then it's still going quite strong. Okay, we need to do a season 3. So it's not like planned out as far as it should have been if we had that support from the start. Whether it's a season 4, I don't know. But we still have Leroy coming, like I said, in the winter. We have one more unannounced character that we have planned that we'll be talking about later.
That's awesome. So esports kind of like ended up like giving the Tekken 7 like a longer lifespan then?
Definitely. I think a lot of it was due to the Tekken World Tour, and not just that, but all the other tournaments that people are kind of doing on their side now that the game has so much attention. All of that has been able to allow us to create more content for the game and to keep it going, because I think everyone's really happy with the base game, and rather than moving on to something that no one knows about, to try to implement more features that they would like, or more characters that are diverse, or maybe some characters that were missing from the initial roster that people missed. So I think we're happy. It seems like the community's happy, so I hope to continue this for a while to go.
That last day at EVO, it was the loudest. Tekken 7 was the loudest of all the tournaments. He talked about seeing the fans react to the game, and also seeing a unified champion, Arslan, who won at both the EVO Japan and at EVO Las Vegas.
Yeah, I think that was the story of this year. You know, you always had the rivalries, the North America against Europe, and then everyone's still chasing Japan. Japan and Korea have, you know, their rivalry. And then this past year was all how to beat the Koreans, whether that's Ni or Kudans or Rangchu. You know, so many good players. And then out of nowhere, somewhere no one's had any kind of attention on Pakistan, Tekken-wise, they just come out, I think it was Arslan Ash, EVO Japan. And people are like, wow, what is this guy? Is it a fluke? And then on stage he says, I'm not even the best one in Pakistan. And that just gets everyone's imagination pumping. He's proven since then consistently that he can beat me and some of these other players. And then it's not a fluke. It's just his Tekken fundamentals are so strong. It doesn't matter if he uses Geese or Kazumi or, you know, whatever character. And there's been some others in his footsteps that have come out recently from Pakistan and done a really strong showing. So I think it's definitely somewhere that will continue to be strong and get some the attention it deserves.
Now you mentioned you've got one more character that you haven't announced. Is it going to be someone new like Leroy, or is it going to be a returning fan favorite, someone from the past? Can you at least say that?
Well, we haven't announced. If you look at the end slate on the trailer, it gives an overview of the free content coming on the bottom. The top had Safinaz, Leroy, feature, character. And if you look back at the other end slates, you can tell Negan had his like special slot, or whenever we have a guest character, there's a special slot. So since it's not like that, you can tell then it's either a returning character or a new character. Okay, so we have 3 installments we're planning. So the first one just dropped with the season 3. We had Safinaz as well as the play stats feature in the game. All the new moves added to each of the existing characters. And then for winter we have Leroy coming up, and we have some other play features that are coming as well. And then we have that said character coming later, I would say early next year.